One of the richest men in China today is this man, a self-made billionaire who started from nothing, failed hundreds of times, but never gave up, and finally made it. This is the story of Jack Ma, the founder of the website Alibaba. We all know him as Jack Ma, but when he was born in 1964 in the city of Hangzhou, China, his real name wasn't Jack Ma, it was Ma Yun. Jack grew up during one of China's darkest periods, the era of Mao Zedong. If you know a little about Chinese history, that sentence alone tells you everything. It was a time of poverty, chaos, and strict communist control. Jack and his family lived through all of that, struggling to survive. China back then was nothing like the China we know today. Over 90% of everything was owned by the communist government. There was no real free market, no private businesses, nothing. In Mao's China, it didn't matter how smart or creative you were. If you were an engineer, an inventor, an entrepreneur, your path was blocked. But even in that environment, Jack Ma focused on one thing: education. He was fascinated by English, and he started teaching himself the language. When the 1970s arrived, things began to loosen up a little. Mao was getting old, and the people running the country after him were more flexible. That small amount of flexibility opened the door to something huge. Foreign investors started entering China. With them came tourists, and that's when young Jack saw his first opportunity. He was just a kid, about 10 or 12 years old, but every day he'd ride his bicycle to hotels where foreign tourists stayed. He'd offer to show them around the city for free, just so he could practice speaking English. They liked this curious little boy who spoke broken English and had big dreams. Day by day, his English got better. When these tourists asked him his name, he realized Ma Yun was hard for them to pronounce. So he gave himself an English name, Jack Ma. That's how the name we all know today was born. As he grew older, Jack started looking for jobs, but every door was shut in his face. He was rejected from dozens of places, even KFC, which had just opened in his city. Out of 24 applicants, 23 were hired. Jack was the only one rejected. Around this time, he had to take the high school entrance exam and failed it 3 times. It wasn't even that hard, but he just couldn't pass. Finally, on his 4th attempt, he made it. Jack wasn't naturally gifted in school, but his passion for English never faded. He pushed himself harder, studied non-stop, and eventually got accepted into college, majoring in English. 4 years later, he graduated and became an English teacher. His salary? $15 a month. That's right, 15. But in China at that time, $15 wasn't terrible. China was still poor and very communist, but slowly changing. By the 1990s, China had come a long way since Mao's death. His successor, Deng Xiaoping, had opened up the economy. China was now a strange hybrid. Communist politics, but capitalist markets. People could finally start their own businesses, though still under government rules. The world started investing in China, and the country's economy began to explode. But Jack Ma was still a schoolteacher, earning $15 or $16 a month, now in his 30s. Most people at that age, in that position, would have given up on big dreams. Not Jack. He looked around and realized others who started small businesses were doing much better than he was. So he decided, I'm going into business too. The problem? He had no money, no experience, and no business background. His family had never run a business either. He was starting completely from zero. His first venture was a translation agency. He set up a small office and told people, "We'll translate anything from Chinese to English." He didn't earn much, sometimes less than teaching, but he loved it. He finally felt like he was doing something that mattered. He kept the translation business going for about a year, until 1995. That year, the internet was exploding across the world. Jack had heard about it, read about it, but in China, the internet didn't exist yet. Still, he was curious enough to take a huge risk. He gathered all his savings and flew to America, just to learn what the internet really was. In the US, he sat at a computer and searched the word China. Nothing came up. No results. He was shocked. How is that possible? He thought. China has over 1 billion people, But there's nothing about it online. Not even a single Chinese drink or product appeared. That moment changed him. He realized if he could bring China online, he could connect its businesses with the world. The problem: the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, controlled everything, and they didn't want open internet access yet. But Jack found a loophole. He teamed up with a few programmers and created a website called China Pages, listing Chinese factories and their email addresses for foreign buyers. Now, most ordinary Chinese people still didn't have internet, not even 1 in a million. But factories did, and those factories started using Jack's site to connect with the world. Buyers from other countries could finally find Chinese suppliers online. The idea was brilliant and years ahead of its time. China Pages began to grow. Jack was finally making money. But then came the copycats. Dozens of similar websites popped up overnight, all copying his idea, even his website name. His site was called China Pages. Others launched Chinese Pages, China Page, the Chinese Page, tiny variations meant to steal customers. They copied the idea, but not the vision. Eventually, the imitators crushed Jack's first company. He went broke. But Jack didn't quit. He knew the real gold wasn't in one website, it was in the internet itself. So he started thinking bigger. By 1999, he had a new idea. Something like eBay, but for China. At that time, eBay, founded by the Iranian-American Pierre Omidyar, was the biggest e-commerce site in the world. Jack wanted to create its Chinese equivalent. But instead of individual sellers, he wanted factories and wholesalers to sell directly to the world. That's how Alibaba.com was born. The name Alibaba came from the old story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. He picked it because it was easy to remember, no matter where you were from. He knew if you wanted to go global, your brand had to be simple, catchy, universal. Jack himself wasn't a tech expert, so he hired skilled developers to make sure Alibaba.com was fast, powerful, and flawless. Every penny he had went into building that website. And then luck struck. Alibaba launched just as China's economy was exploding and internet access was spreading. In 1999, China had only about 1 million internet users. By 2000, that number had jumped past 20 million. It was the golden age of the internet, both for the world and for China. Alibaba quickly became the bridge between Chinese manufacturers and the rest of the world. If you wanted to buy something made in China, Alibaba was the place to go. As the website grew, Jack needed investors. That's when a Japanese billionaire named Masayoshi Son, founder of SoftBank, came in. He invested $20 million in Alibaba, an enormous amount for a young Chinese website at the time. 14 years later, that investment was worth $50 billion. It became one of the most profitable investments in history. With that funding, Alibaba expanded to 188 countries, hosting over 150,000 Chinese suppliers. But here's the crazy part. In those early years, Jack didn't charge any commission fees. He just connected buyers and sellers for free. He was building trust before building profit. In 2003, eBay decided to enter China, launching its own local platform called EachNet. When Jack saw that, he immediately built a rival site just for Chinese consumers, Taobao.com. Taobao was messy, colorful, crowded, completely different from eBay's clean, minimal design. But Jack understood something eBay didn't. Chinese people love energy, not emptiness. They preferred busy, noisy websites filled with pictures and text. So Taobao exploded in popularity and crushed eBay's Chinese ambitions. Soon after, Jack launched another site, Tmall.com, where big Chinese brands could sell directly to customers. While Taobao connected people to people, Tmall connected companies to people. That move secured Jack Ma's dominance, not just globally, but inside China itself. Today, Tmall is the largest online store in the world. even bigger than Amazon, though it only serves China. But with 1.4 billion people, that's more than enough. In 2010, Jack launched yet another platform, AliExpress.com, aimed at helping small Chinese businesses sell internationally. By this time, he loved the name Ali so much, he just kept using it. By 2014, Jack Ma was no longer just China's richest man. He was the richest man in all of Asia, worth over $60 billion. He began investing in other companies with strong futures, and those bets paid off. By 2020, Alibaba had become the 7th most valuable company in the world, sitting right behind Facebook. The Chinese government at first loved him. He was bringing massive wealth and global attention to China. But not everyone in the CCP was happy. Jack Ma was becoming too popular, too powerful, too independent. And then came the turning point. In 2020, at the height of Alibaba's success, Jack made a public speech. He criticized the Chinese government, saying, "China discourages innovation. Whenever we try something new, they put obstacles in our way." That one sentence, that tiny act of defiance, changed his life forever. Soon after, he mysteriously resigned from Alibaba. When asked why, he simply said he wanted to focus on philanthropy. But everyone knew what that meant. The government had told him to pack his bags. Just months later, in April 2021, the Chinese government fined Alibaba a record-breaking $2.8 billion, accusing it of monopolistic practices. Everyone understood the real reason. They didn't care about monopolies, they cared about control. Jack Ma had become a celebrity, giving speeches, inspiring millions, speaking with charisma and power. And that scared the Communist Party. He had to be silenced. They didn't destroy him completely. He's still a billionaire worth over $30 billion. But his influence inside China vanished. He disappeared from the spotlight, stopped giving public talks, and stayed away from politics entirely. And that's how one of the most ambitious men in modern China, a poor boy who built one of the world's greatest empires, was quietly pushed off the stage. Jack Ma's story is a reminder. In China, you can get rich, you can build an empire, but no matter how powerful you become, the government always has the final word.